is the awesome one, and there's none like him. With him we win. He's our champion. With him we can't lose. We always win. He's our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can't lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can't lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can't lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can't lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can't lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. For yet another opportunity to celebrate and commemorate our time of Sabbath rest, our pre-Sabbath rest. As we've come together, we appreciate him for keeping us through the week, allowing us to assemble here one more time. In spite of the weather, it's really nasty out there. It's cold. It's misting, and we're supposed to have some warmer weather. But it is what it is. And just because it's raining outside doesn't mean that it has to affect our praise and affect us in giving him all praise. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. Come on, put your hands together. With the root of the Torah, as we always do. Once again, I just want to encourage you, keep your heads up, keep your shoulders square, keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because you can't go wrong when you allow him to be the leader, the conductor, the guide of your life. You can't go wrong. And as long as we keep him first, and as long as we continue to ahab him, he will continue to lead and guide us. I'm sure it has been a very challenging week for everyone. But nevertheless, we give him praise. We give him praise. The harder the challenge, the harder the praise. The harder the struggle, the harder our praise. And we have to be committed to him because he's already committed to us. And so we want to begin with the Baruch of the Torah, as we always do at the beginning of our class. So I want you to repeat with me. Baruch Yahuwah. Baruch Yahuwah. The Baruch one. The Baruch one. Baruch is Yahuwah. Baruch is Yahuwah. The Baruch one. The Baruch one. For all eternity. For all eternity. Baruch atah. Baruch atah. Yahuwah. Yahuwah. Our supreme one. Our supreme one. King of the universe. King of the universe. Who selected us. Who selected us. From all the peoples. From all the peoples. And gave us his Torah. And gave us his Torah. Baruch atah. Baruch atah. Yahuwah. Yahuwah. Giver of the Torah. And it is so. And it is so. Baruch atah. Baruch atah. Yahuwah. Yahuwah. Our supreme one. Our supreme one. King of the universe. King of the universe. Who gave us the Torah of truth. Who gave us the Torah of truth. And implanted eternal life within us. And implanted eternal life within us. Baruch atah. Baruch atah. Yahuwah. Yahuwah. Giver of the Torah. Giver of the Torah. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. Now we will have the reading of the 10 Commandments done by Mattathias. And this.
Leviticus 5, verses 6 to 22. Adam, I am Yahuwah, your power, which brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the bed of slavery. Then you shall know the power before me. You shall not make you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the mind beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them, nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah, your power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the idols upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and show mercy unto thousands of them that harm me and keep my commandments. Gimel, you shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name and empties it. Dalet, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah your power has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gates, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah your power brought you out of there through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore Yahuwah your power commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Hey, esteem your Ab and your Ema as Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahuwah your power is about to give you. Well, you shall not murder. Zain, neither shall you commit adultery. Hit, neither shall you steal. Tet, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. You, neither shall you desire your neighbor's issue, neither shall you covet your neighbor's bed, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount, out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of thick darkness with a great voice. And he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me. And it is so.
And it is so. Devarim chapter 6, verses 1 through 18, and it reads, these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah your power commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you're going to enter and possess it. Now understand that means also in the land that we're living in now. That you might fear Yahuwah your power to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the yamim of your life, and that your yamim may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yasharal, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah power of your Abbas has promised you in the land that flows with milk and honey. Shema Yasharal, Yahuwah our supreme one. Yahuwah is a God. Hear, O Yasharal, Yahuwah our supreme one. Yahuwah is a God. And you shall ahab Yahuwah your supreme one with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this yom shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. To fall to what?
Bind to the mind.
To bind to the mind, to give your mind access, to give Torah access to your mind. It is very important that we understand that if we don't give Torah access to our mind, we will constantly be on the losing end. And it is so. And it is so. Verse 9 says, and you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land which he swore to your Abbas, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Yaakov, to give you great cities which you did not build, houses full of all great things which you filled not, wells dug which you did not dig, and vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you shall have eaten and be full, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power and serve him, and shall swear by his name. Verse 14, you shall not go after the power of the people which are round about you. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power, excuse me, and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you. Verse 18, and you shall do that which is right in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the great land which Yahuwah swore to your fathers. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Let us have another song, please. Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. I will baruch your name. 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 Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. I will baruch your name. 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 Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. I will baruch your name. 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 Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. I will baruch your name. 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 Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Baruch Yahuwah, oh my Baruch your name. I will Baruch your name. I will Baruch your name. I will Baruch your name. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. I will Baruch your name. 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 Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. I will Baruch your name. 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 Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. I will Baruch your name. 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 Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. I will Baruch your name. 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 Come on, Baruch his name. Let everything that has breath praise you, for he is worthy of all praise. You are worthy of all praise. You are worthy of all thanks. You are worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. He's worthy, he's worthy. He's worthy. Yes, he is. You're worthy, you're worthy. And we do appreciate you for that, what you're doing, that, what you've done, and that, what you're yet going to do. We're going to turn our attention to the scroll of Yahushua, the son of Nun, which is Joshua chapter 1. And we're going to read verse 7, and then we're going to recite verse 8, as I have tailored it to fit our time of personal confession. Verse 7 says, only be you strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Verse 8, as I have tailored it to fit a time of personal confession. I didn't change it, just personalized it. Repeat with me. I will not let the scroll of the Torah, I will not let the scroll of the Torah depart out of my mouth, but I shall meditate in it, Yom and Layla, that I may observe, to do according to all that is written in it. For then I shall make my way prosperous, and then I shall act wisely. Now look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, and then you shall act wisely. And then you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor, tell your other neighbor, and then you shall act wisely. And then you shall act wisely. Take your hand and place your hand over your heart and say, Abba Yahuwah.
Abba Yahuwah.
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
Come on, Abba Yahuwah.
Abba Yahuwah.
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I endeavor.
I endeavor
To act wisely.
to act wisely.
I endeavor.
I endeavor
To act wisely.
to act wisely.
Come on, say it like you mean it. I endeavor.
I endeavor
To act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. You must
And it is so.
understand it is imperative that we act wisely.
That's right.
Every day of our lives, we must endeavor to act wisely. Very important that we act wisely. Because every choice and decision we make is going to determine if we're going to go up, if we're going to be stunted, if we're going to have to stop a moment, take a breather, and keep on moving. But no matter what, it is important that we act wisely. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Mishlei 15:8, the sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination, hateful, and exceedingly offensive unto you, Abba Yahuwah, but the prayer of the upright is your delight. Romaiah 14:17-18, for the kingdom of Yahuwah is not meat and drink, but uprightness and shalom and joy in the Ruach Kodesh. For he that in these things serve Yahush is acceptable to Yahuwah and approved of men. Mishlei 3:4, so shall you find great understanding and high esteem in the sight of judgment of Yahuwah and man. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. And it is so.
And it is so. And it is so.
Tehillim 1:1. Baruch is the man who walketh not in the counsel of the unrighteous, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the instructions of Abba Yahuwah, and he doth meditate upon it. And it is so.
And it is so.
Ibram 11:6, but without belief it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Yahuwah must believe that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. It takes belief to be obedient, diligent, and disciplined. Tehillim 34:15, the eyes of Yahuwah are upon the upright, and his ears are open unto our cry. And the upright cry. Verse 17, the upright cry, and Yahuwah heareth and delivereth them out of all their troubles. Masa 1:8, but we shall receive power. After that, the Ruach HaKodesh has come upon us, and we shall be witnesses unto him both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Shamora and unto the uttermost part of the earth. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. I want to read this as well. Very important for us to remember this. Luke 22, verse 31 and 32. Simeon, Simeon, behold, Shaitan hath desired to have you, to sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee that thy belief fail not. We're going to all be tempted and we're going to all be challenged. No matter who we are, no matter what you are, if you are believing and you are standing and walking in truth, you are going to find yourself being challenged. You're going to find yourself, you're going to find that the enemy is going to come at you no matter who you are or what you are. It doesn't matter if you're just newly born in this. It doesn't matter if you've been in it for years. You have to understand the thing that the enemy wants most from us is our belief in Abba Yahuwah.
Right.
And once he is able to destroy our belief in Abba Yahuwah, we won't believe in anything else that is connected to him. We won't believe in Yahush. We won't believe in his instructions for our lives. We won't believe in life itself. And we will trade that out for something else. And so it is important that we always stay locked and loaded, as I like to say, a term that I use. Why? Because when you're locked and loaded, whenever something comes up to you, you don't have to put a round in the chamber. It's already one in there. Always keep a round in the chamber. And so it's very important that we understand that, very important that we keep ourselves before the Abba, so that when the enemy comes in like a flood, guess what? We give Abba Yahuwah a reason, and we give him that right away to lift up a standard against him, so that he won't be able to overtake us. Why? Because this is what the enemy desires to do. When belief is broken down, the foundation of our life in him gives way. and the entire structure of our experience with him falls. And so it is important that we understand that the enemy desires to make us forget our experience in coming into truth so that we will forfeit it and go in a whole different direction.
Right.
But we have to remember that Abba Yahuwah, through Yahushua Mashiach, has prayed for us, that our belief fail us not, and that in the hour of our testing, that we will hold fast. Right. Are you following me?
Yes.
And in the event we find ourselves being overtaken, guess what? He is committed to forgive us of our trespasses. Right. So it's not the end. The problem comes in is that we've got to be willing to repent. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
It is very important that we make sure we maintain a heart that is willing to repent, because that's the key that's going to keep us close to him and him close to us. Right. That we be willing to repent and move forward. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. Let us have another song, please.
I lift your name on high. I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. I lift your name on high. I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. I lift your name on high. I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the state, my debt to pay, from the state to the grave, from the grave to the sky. I lift your name on high. I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. I lift your name on high. I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the state, my debt to pay, from the state to the grave, from the grave to the sky. I lift your name on high. I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. I lift your name on high. I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the state, my debt to pay, from the state to the grave, from the grave to the sky. I lift your name on high. 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 You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the stay. My yesterday, from the stage to the grave, from the grave to the sky, you I lift your name on high. You I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth. You show the way from the earth to the stage. My yesterday, from the stage to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Do I lift your name on high? You I lift your name on high. 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 You I lift your name on
Yes, he is. He's worthy, and we appreciate his son, Yahushua Mashiach, the one that is the mediator, the one that has made it all possible for us to have a relationship with the Abba. It is very important that we never ever forget him. Now, understand, we don't praise him.
That's right.
That's where the problem comes in, is understanding who deserves the praise and where the praise is directed to. But it's important that we understand that he is very important and that he is very significant in our lives. For without him, we would not know truth. For without him, we would not have eternal life.
That's right.
Yehukin and Aleph 2, 5 and 6, I'm sorry. And it reads, but whoever guards his Torah, truly the Ahab of Yahuwah has been perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. Verse 6, the one who says he lives in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked. So it is important that we understand that Yahush is our example on how we are to govern our lives in this world. Very important for us to understand, because without him, what example and who do we have to show us how to walk? We don't. Yahush was the only perfect man that was able to live by Torah. No guile was ever found in his mouth, and he lived a perfect life. Why? Because he had mastered living by the Torah. Because he is the Torah made flesh. So it's important that we understand that. And I always read this because this is something Yahuwah put in my heart to do, to encourage us and to keep us grounded in our belief of the Mashiach. Because many of our Ak and Akodi have dropped out of the race. Many of them have given up because somewhere along the line, somebody slipped them a Mickey, somebody slipped them erroneous teaching, somebody slipped them something that made them feel and believe that the Mashiach is not real. Teachings of old and teachings of tradition, but the traditions of men make the word, the Torah, of none effect in our lives. And many have bought into that lie and denounce him. So it is important that we keep our belief in him, because without him, we do not have eternal life.
That's right. That's right.
Very important for us to understand that. Yehukin and Aleph, chapter 5, verses 3 through 15. Excuse me, and it reads, for this is the Ahab for Yahuwah, that we guard his commands, and his commands are not difficult. Now, nowhere is this denouncing or ever telling us to not follow the commands of Abba Yahuwah, but we are to guard them. Because everyone having been begotten of Yahuwah overcomes the world. And this is the overcoming that has overcome the world, our belief. Verse 5, who is the one who overcomes the world but he who believes that Yahush is the son of Yahuwah? This is the one that came by water and blood, Yahush Mashiach. Not only by water, but by water and blood. And it is the Ruach who bears witness, because the Ruach is the truth. Because there are three who bear witness, the Ruach and the water and the blood. And the three are in agreement. If we receive the witness of men, the witness of Yahuwah is greater. Somebody say the witness of Yahuwah is greater.
The witness of Yahuwah is greater.
Because this is the witness of Yahuwah which he has witnessed concerning his son. The one who believes in the Son of Yahuwah has the witness in himself. The one who does not believe Yahuwah has made him a liar, because he has not believed the witness that Yahuwah has given concerning his Son. And this is the witness, that Yahuwah has given us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. He who possesses the Son possesses life. He who does not possess the Son of Yahuwah does not possess life. I have written this to you who believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah, so that you know that you possess everlasting life, and so that you believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah. And this is the boldness that we have in him, that if we ask whatever according to his desire, he hears us. Verse 15, and if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Now we have come to a portion of our first portion of our class, and that part is to do our affirmations, then our declaration, and then our confession, to seal our time of praise, prayer, and worship before the hour. We're going to do our affirmations, and then after our affirmation, we're going to do our declaration. We do this to help us stay stable and to always keep us mindful of our responsibility. Just like when a person is newly on a job, they are trained in that area, whatever it is. I don't care if it's sweeping the floor. People think sweeping the floor is easy. No, it's not, because you have to sweep it a certain way, even vacuuming the floor. If you understand any of those things, I worked in construction cleanup for about a year. And one of the things we were taught is that you just don't go in the room and vacuum, all around and walk out, because when they come in the next day, they don't want to see footprints. So you start at the back of the wall, and from the back of the wall, you work your way out. So when they come in, the only footprints that are left in there are the ones they put in there. So you just don't vacuum, even sweeping. When you sweep, it's a certain way that they want things done. Why? Because it shows a pattern. And so when we come into this walk, it is important that we understand we have a responsibility to develop and to grow.
That's right.
And so when we purpose that, when we set that out, and as we make that our goal, and as we make that our purpose, we're able to accomplish that goal and that purpose. Why? Because we've first been given what we're supposed to do. Then we're given the information and the tools we need to develop and grow. And it is so.
And it is so.
And so this is to help us to always be mindful of our responsibility. Excuse me. Repeat this with me. I purpose to develop my ruach.
I purpose to develop my ruach.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I am born again.
I am born again.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I have the life and nature
I have the life and nature
of Yahuwah in my ruach.
of Yahuwah in my ruach.
That life is
That life is
the Torah of Yasharal.
the Torah of Yahshua.
I purpose to walk
I purpose to walk
in the Torah of life.
in the Torah of life.
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahush,
Yahush,
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's knowledge,
Yahuwah's knowledge
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's ahab,
Yahuwah's ahab
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's power
Yahuwah's power
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's wisdom
Yahuwah's wisdom
is in me.
is in me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching me.
He is leading me.
He is leading me.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
The Ruach
The Ruach
HaKodesh
HaKodesh
of Yahuwah in me
of Yahuwah in me
is leading me.
is leading me.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll walk in the Torah,
I walk in the Torah,
Yahush,
Yahush,
our Mashiach,
Hamashiach,
and it is so.
and it is so.
Now our declaration of healing for our people and for ourselves. One thing is that when we read these affirmations and declarations, it is not going out, but it's to come up, cover us, and then go out.
Right.
Because we are in need of his healing. We are in need of his confirmation and affirmation in and upon our lives. So as we declare this in the atmosphere, not only are we declaring it in the atmosphere, but we're also declaring it in our atmosphere.
That's right.
Because you have an atmosphere in your life too.
Right.
Your atmosphere is either conducive of joy or it's either conducive of sadness and sorrow. And we want to be joyful.
That's right.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. All right, repeat with me. I'll be Yahuwah
I'll be Yahuwah.
in the name of Yahush,
In the name of Yahush.
our Mashiach.
Our Mashiach.
We subdue ignorance
We subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge.
with Torah knowledge.
And through this knowledge
And through this knowledge
of Torah truth,
of Torah truth,
we claim healing,
we claim healing,
shalom,
shalom,
deliverance,
deliverance,
and salvation.
and salvation.
We decree
We decree
Torah truth
Torah truth
in the lives
in the lives
of your people,
of your people,
our
our people,
Yasharal.
Yahshua.
We unite
We unite
not to fight,
not to fight,
not to fight
not to fight
each other,
each other,
each other, but the enemy
but the enemy
of our belief.
of our belief.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we have come to the court where we bow before our King and we seal our time of praise, prayer, and worship. Repeat with me. May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation
and the deliberation
of my heart
of my heart
be desirable before you.
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you.
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
We have just recited Tehillim 19 and 14, and it is so.
And it is so.
You may be seated in his presence. Once again, I want to say Todah and welcome, welcome, welcome all of you on the social media and those of you that are with us here in person. We want to say welcome to our happy abode as we've come to dive into the instructions of our Abba. We appreciate him for all that he's doing and all that he's yet going to do as we continue to go over the Torah portions. This is what we do every pre-Sabbath and every Sabbath. This is what our lifestyle is dependent upon. In order for us to know who we are, what we are supposed to be about, it is important that we look and observe the life of our ancestors and excuse me, our ancestors before us. It's very important that we understand that. Why is it important that we understand that? Because if we don't understand the things that got them in trouble, then we will never understand certain principles. It is important that we don't mimic or that we don't commit the same sins that they committed.
Right.
I said it and I'll continue to say it. The same blood and DNA that was in them is in us.
Right.
And so the same passions and the same errors and the same weaknesses that were in them are also within us. But watch this. Our weaknesses can be covered and our weaknesses can be protected in Yahush, our Mashiach, if we would just allow him to do what he was sent here to do.
That's right.
And so it is important that we understand that. It is very important that we are able to, excuse me, get a handle on our lives. And I'm a stickler for that. Why? Because when we were outside of truth, anything we did with excellence. We did it until we knew we had mastered it. When you learn to drive, you don't just drive for yourself, you drive for the next person and the next person. You drive for everybody that's on the highway, period. Because if you get on that driving just for yourself, you will find yourself in countless accidents.
Right.
Because while you driving for yourself, guess what? The next person is doing the same thing. And if y'all thinking the same way, guess what happens? You both gonna be in the same situation. But when you learn to drive, not just for yourself, but also for the next person, because you don't know what the next person is capable of doing, and you don't know how well skilled a driver the person is driving next to you.
That's right.
You know, and even though we are told not to text and drive, people still text and drive. Bad people. Are y'all hearing me? Be driving all over another lane, be like, oh shoot, let me get back in the right lane. And so it's important that we understand. The reason it is dangerous is because people can get hurt really, really bad. And you have to understand, if we both texting and driving and we crash and somebody behind us is doing it, we gonna have a major pile up. So we've come to understand, and I know sometimes when you're trying to do stuff, excuse me, and you want to get done, you tend to sometimes when it's all said and done, you tend to, be trying to hurry and get that last little say-so, and you be trying to hurry and do the last little thing, and you'd be saying, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to wait till I get to the red light. And that's why if I'm saying something to somebody, I'm like, if I stop or if I'm not, it means I'm driving.
Right.
You know, because you be trying to master looking down and texting and driving, and that's very dangerous. So we don't want to do that, but we want to really get to a place in our lives where it becomes a part of it becomes second nature to us. It becomes a part of our lifestyle. We don't have to struggle to do it. We do it because we are hard doing it. The song says, who was it by that group in Christianity? But they use Yahuwah
Was it King of Camp?
Kino Camp. They said, I do what I do because I have doing it. We do what we do because we are have doing it. We are have the Abba. And because we do so, we want to perfect our way of life. We just don't want to be getting by. We just don't want to be making or doing just enough. We want to do everything that He has commissioned us to do. And you have to understand, when we live by the Torah, that is what makes us perfect.
Right.
What all perfect means is to be upright.
Right.
Is to be upright. So we have no excuse except we lack the understanding and the knowledge of these things. Are you following me?
Yes.
So we want to, like I say, look at these things, and we want to bring clarity in our lives, and bring clarity in our way of life. So as we continue to move forward, we will be strong, and we will be able to stand, and having done all to stand, stand therefore with our loins girded about with this truth, and knowing that we are able to be victors and not victims. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
It's important for us to understand that. All right, we want to turn our attention to chapter 41 of Bereshit, which is Genesis. Excuse me. And every Sabbath we have a theme, and our theme is Miketz, and it means at the end of. Miketz, and it means at the end of. And so we're in chapter 41. We know we've been looking at the life of the 12 tribes, or the 12 brothers. And now we are at the life of Joseph. Joseph is in prison, and he has been in prison for a moment now. And we are to a point to where we're at his life now, where now Pharaoh has a dream. And now it is time for Joseph to come forth. I said it on last week, and I've continued to say it. There were things that Joseph had to learn about himself in order to be prepared for where Abba Yahuwah was taking him. And there are times in our lives it'll feel like we're going backwards instead of forward. Well, it is because the Abba is pressing things out of us, so that where he wants to get us, those things will already be dealt with and already out of our lives. And this is how we're able to take life's lessons from our ancestors and forefathers and apply it to our lives on this young. How can we do that? Because we can look and say, okay, well, how can this help me? Well, it can help us because if Yahuwah has great plans for our lives, we've got to be mentally ready. Then we have to be mature enough to handle it and not go crazy.
That's right.
Not get the big head and go off on the deep end. And so this is showing us, by looking at his life and showing that the Abba was with him, but he had to train him and he had to show him how to govern his life. And so we're going to look at that on this later. Chapter 41, and we're going to begin with verse 1. And let us read, let's do 8 verses. Let's do 9. Let's do 9 verses.
And it is so.
And it is so. 19. Nine verses.
Then it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream, and behold, he stood by the river. Suddenly there came up out of the river 7 cows, fine looking and fat, and they fed in the meadow. Then behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, ugly and gaunt, and stood by the river, and stood by the other cow on the bank of the river. And the ugly and gaunt cows ate up the 7 fine-looking and fat cows. So Pharaoh awoke. He slept and dreamed a second time. And suddenly 7 heads of grain came up on one stalk, plump and good. And behold, 7 thin heads scorched by the east wind sprang up after them. And the 7 thin heads devoured the 7 plump and full heads. So Pharaoh woke, and indeed it was a dream. Now it came to pass in the morning that his ruach was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Mitzrayim, and all its wise men, and Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none who could interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief butler spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember my faults this day, and it is so.
And it is so. All right. Excuse me. We're going to look at verse 1, Pharaoh. It is impossible to identify the Pharaoh of the Joseph story, who throughout is simply called Pharaoh. The term Pharaoh equals great house, originally referred to the place and is not attested as a designation for the king of Mitzrayim until the 15th century BC. Even then, for the next 500 years or so, it was not used with the name of the king, but stood alone as here and in Shema. It is not until the 10th century that it is used in combination with a personal name. The general chronology locates Joseph in the period known as the Middle Kingdom, first quarter of the second millennium, or the second intermediate period, second quarter of the second millennium. Those who feel that a precise chronology can be derived from the biblical record place Joseph or Joseph in the reign of Menahem the second, or Seroses the second or third. And so basically, when they said Pharaoh, it was talking about great house. It wasn't later until it was attached and made to be something else. So now this is really going to help shape up the things that are taking place. Excuse me. Why? Because you have to understand, why would this dream trouble him? Because he is the Pharaoh. His basically it's a title. He is his house. He is the governor, or he is the ruler of Mitzrayim. And so for him to have a vision like this, he needed to know what it was symbolic. Now, you know, he probably had other dreams as well, or other visions, but this one troubled him. I'm sure what troubled you? You're seeing some skinny, gaunt-looking cows, and you know, it's like, what is this coming from? This can't be, you know, anything great, especially with the way they're looking. So, had a dream. A king's dream is always of special importance, and he customarily employed dream specialists to interpret the dream and offer advice as to how to proceed. It was of particular importance if a dream were repeated, and a number of examples are known from the literature. Just as your Pharaoh, has a double dream here. It's talking about Gudea, king of Lagash, around 2000 BC, had a double dream concerning the building of a temple. And so it's just kind of showing you that there were others that had dreams around that time. And so when it was a double dream, or you dream the same thing, you know how when you go to sleep and it puts you back in the same dream, and you start thinking, I just had this dream. Why am I dreaming this a second time? It is to show emphasis that this is something that should not be disregarded. Are you following me?
Yes.
It is very important that it is looked at in that way. And so here we see this. Now let us examine what is being said in the dream. Excuse me. At the end of the 2 full years, the point from which the period is reckoned may either be either the time of the chief butler was released or Joseph was put into prison. So it's kind of giving you a feel of that. Now here it is. He is this vision and the elements of the vision, which troubles him, and it troubles him because of what is seen in the dream. Now, only the Nile is denoted by the word Yor, because Mitzrayim is irrigated by artificial canals, or Urip, which receive their water from the overflow of the Nile. Now, the contents that the word applies to any river. So it's talking about the river. Now, out of the river, because famine and plenty in Mitzrayim depended on the Nile, he saw them come up out of the Nile. So this was important for them to understand, because we understand not only did they regard the Nile, but they also, we know they also not only regarded the Nile, but they also kind of worshiped the Nile. And so this is when he saw this troubled him, because this was a place that they truly looked at as being a place of their prosperity. Now, kind. These symbolize plowing, while the ears of corn in the second dream symbolize reaping. It appears that the years of plenty were only experienced in Mitzrayim, whereas the subsequent famine was more widely spread. Because Joseph interpreted, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Mitzrayim, but there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. Mitzrayim not being specified. Possibly that was indicated by the kin feeding in the reed grass in Mitzrayim, but the others which ate them up wandered away. Pharaoh knew not where, implying that the famine would spread beyond the borders of Mitzrayim. So you start looking, okay, if it's coming up out of the Nile where we are, and it's going to become something that is going to be bigger than we are, we need to know what's happening. I need to know what's going on. And any person that, or any king or any leader that is worth their salt is going to want to know, okay, this is a warning. And I have to prepare the people that are with us, as well as be prepared for the people that are around us. So it's very important that we understand the reason why this dream really caused him to concerning it. Now, wealth to plenty when men look with esteem upon one another. In other words, this was a time when people look towards one another and they would show this esteem, which we know means favor as well. Excuse me. Reed grass, or it is rendered swamp. Verse 3, stood by the other kin after their side, which indicated that the famine would immediately follow the plenty. They stood by them for some time, symbolizing that for a period there would be both famine and plenty. The latter in Mitzrayim, the former in other countries, as it is said, there was famine in all lands, but in the land of Mitzrayim there was bread. So once again, the importance of understanding what is taking place here. This was going to be, why? Because this was the place that Yahuwah was going to Baruch the children of Yasharal. And so this is why Joseph had to be there. Now, the way he got there was not the most orthodox way, but yet and still he had to be there, because he had to be the one that Yahuwah would use from it, and then everybody else would come and benefit from it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because they're the first. So because it was, you have to understand this, all this was created so that the children of Yasharal would have something.
Right.
Because remember, famine was always popping up during that time. During the time of Abraham, there was a famine. During the time of Yaakov, there was a famine. So famines in the land was something that was not uncommon. But this time it was something different, because it spoke from not inside Mitzrayim, but it spoke about the things that would be happening around Mitzrayim. And so it's important. And so he wanted to understand, okay, what is our involvement in this? Verse 4 says, did eat up, a sign that all the joy of the years of plenty would be forgotten during the famine. A sign that the famine would eat up the plenty, and that is that the latter would have to provide against the former. When Joseph said that they should store food during the plenty against, he was not giving advice for which he had not been summoned, but was interpreting the dreams according to the meaning, as they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. In that the stores barely sufficed to support life, but nothing more. So Pharaoh awoke, but immediately afterward he slept again, before he could be aware that it was only a dream. So it's like he woke up, went right back to sleep, and he was thrusted right back into this situation. Why? Because you have to understand, whenever Abba Yahuwah is trying to get your attention, he is going to make sure that you are focused on that what is being said. You know, if you've ever had a vision or a dream, and even if it's nothing but one thing in that dream that catches your attention, you're like, man, everything else is the only thing that I remember. The reason that is the only thing you remember, because that is what is to be focused on. Why? Because in that, whether it is you see a seed on the ground, whether you see a number in the sky, the bottom line is it is up to you to get the interpretation of what that is symbolic of, and what it is that Abba Yahuwah is trying to convey to you. Now we know that when there are some visions that we have that have no meaning to them, and those, as quick as they come, will fade. And those visions that you have that stick with you and be like, I can't shake this. It doesn't really make sense to me, but I can't shake it. The reason you can't shake it is because the Abba is trying to get your attention. He is trying to convey something to you. And so it is important that we understand these things. And I'm coming to understand everybody doesn't interpret dreams, but we do have those that are in the kingdom that do know how to interpret dreams. But I would say this before you go in calling on someone, make sure you fast and pray and you check out that person's lifestyle to be sure that what they are saying you is coming from the lips of Abba into their ears, and not from their heart, from their mouth into your ears. Right. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right, verse 5, one stalk, an indication of plenty, each stalk having 7 ears of corn. And anybody understands when you're dealing with corn, and we were until the reindeer got a hold to our corn and they ate it up. When I say they chewed it up, and they left one little ear undeveloped. Like, okay, we ain't gonna eat it all up. They chewed the stalk up and left one little tiny ear like that. And looked like one of them started eating on it and said, no, we're gonna at least leave them one, at least one. And excuse me, but you began to see what they're going to come up. And normally on a stalk, you can have anywhere from 7 to 8 ears that are going to produce. That's plenty. I did the math one time. We took some corn, and we took 1 ear of corn, and we took all the kernels off. And I think it was something like 500 to 600 kernels on that one stalk. So we said, now you have to understand, when you go buy corn in a can and you take it out, most of the time you paying 80 cents, 90 cents for 1 ear of corn. Right. You're paying that much for 1 ear of corn. So they're making money hand over fist. Whereas when you go buy it fresh, you go buy a ear of corn, you go buy it for 33 cents. Are you following me? In a bag, you go buy it in a bag. It's going to cost you $1.78, maybe $2, almost $3, depending on what you get. Now, if you get the knockoff brand, which I like to say, the Walmart brand, it ain't going to cost you that much. It may cost you $1, but still think of it in this manner. You are paying $1 for an ear of corn. Now, follow what I'm saying. Now, if we're paying $1 an ear for corn, think about how they processed the corn and how they did it as well. The distribution of the corn. Are you following me? Yes. The more corn you have, the more money you make. The less corn you have, what? The less money you make. It's a principle. It is a principle of economics. And so it is important that we understand that. And so once again, the stalks indicated plenty because of the ears that would be produced on them. Now, verse 7, and behold, it was a dream. The dream was now complete, and so he needed interpreters. He now recognized that it was a dream or a vision. But before he had believed that it was a reality, he understood that it was but one dream, and therefore, in relating it to Joseph, he referred to it throughout his dream, not dreams. But the wise men regarded it as 2 different dreams and tried to interpret it accordingly. That is why it is written, Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh, because they kept trying to split it up. They kept trying to make it be 2 dreams, when in actuality, it was only one. So once again, unless you really know somebody that knows what they're talking about, you will have different and mixed interpretations. And so it was the Abba through Joseph to bring forth the interpretation. And this is why it was not time for Joseph to come out of prison yet, because it was not time for him to interpret, because that maybe what others was dreaming wasn't important enough for him to come out. And so now, this time it was time for him to come out so that he could interpret this dream, because you have to understand this was going to affect everybody, not just a few people, everybody. And so it is important that we understand. Now, someone would ask, well, how do we take that and apply it to our life now? Visions and dreams are still very prevalent in Yasharal. I've not yet heard, no, I did, let me rephrase that. I did hear of a young lady's daughter having a vision, and she was seeing different things happen. And it dealt with us as a people on a large scale. So I believe that Abba Yahuwah does speak to us as a collective. And I also believe that he does speak to us as individuals. And so it is important that whenever you come out of a vision, whenever you come out of a dream, that you pray and ask the Abba, is this a personal message, or is this a message for the nation of Yasharal? Because if it is a message for the nation of Yasharal, then it is your responsibility, just like it is my responsibility, to get in a position to be able to share it with all of who? Yasharal. It's important. If you have to share with 2 or 3 people and put them on blast, now you go share it. Are you following me? It's very important that we do these things. But once again, if the Abba gives us a vision of that magnitude, he's going to already have the door open for us to do what's necessary to get it out there. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. All right, let's start at verse 10 and let's read all the way to verse 19. Excuse me.
Verse 10. Pharaoh had been angry with his servants, and he put me and the chief bearer in the custody of the captain of the guard. He and I had dreams on the same night. Each dream had its own meaning. Now our young Ibram, a slave of the captain of the guard, was with us there. We told him our dreams. He interpreted our dreams for us, and each had its own interpretation. It turned out just the way he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was hanged. Then Pharaoh sent for Yosef, and they quickly brought him from the dungeon. He shaved, changed his clothes, and went to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Yosef, I have had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it and said about you that you can hear a dream and interpret it. Verse 16. I am not able to, Yosef answered. It is Yahuwah who will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. So Pharaoh said to Yosef, in my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when 7 well-fed, healthy-looking cows came up from the Nile and began to graze among the reeds. Verse 19. After them, 7 other cows, ugly, very sickly and thin, came up. I've never seen such ugly ones as these in all the land of Mitzrayim. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, he called for the magicians. Magicians, the word chatimim, is compounded of necromim, betim, men who are stirred by the bones of the dead, necromancers. So he was trying to get them, and they didn't know what the world they were talking about, because it didn't come from death. It came from the life source, which is Abba Yahuwah. And so now we understand, and he told me went to go shave. Now he has to come, because remember, when Yosef, before he went into excuse me, went into prison, he was shaven, he was groomed, and so forth. So while he was in prison, he basically reverted back to having a beard and having long hair. But now that he is basically going before the Pharaoh, he's now put back in this position to where, as he stands before the Pharaoh, he has to look like he is a part of Mitzrayim. And so this is what is happening. And so he tells him this. And this is very important that we understand, is that he corrected him. He said, I can't interpret this dream. He said, I'm not an interpreter of dreams. He said, only the Abba can interpret a dream. This is important that we give Abba Yahuwah all praise, and that we make sure people understand it is not us, because then you stand in the place of a medium, you stand in the place of a spiritualist, you also stand in the place of a witch or a warlock. Because then you start, because who is your source? If you say, well, I can't interpret a dream. No, you can't. None of us interpret a dream. Because if Abba Yahuwah doesn't give us the meaning, then where do you get your meaning from? So it's important that we understand that. And he corrected him quickly. Why? Because he wanted to make sure that he understood all praise belongs to the Abba. All plagues, all praise, and nothing that that does not. If he does not get the praise, and that means we don't need to be involved in it.
Mhm.
If he can't get the praise out of it, then we do not need to be involved in it. And so he quickly made sure that he uh, self like we're supposed to.
Yes.
Never let anybody praise you for anything. So we don't want to put ourselves in that position. Are you understand me?
Yes.
He said in verse 16, and Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. Power will give Pharaoh an answer of peace or of shalom, because he was troubled. All right, we look at verse 17. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, behold, in my dream, I stood on the bank of the river. Now, once again, you have to understand it's important that the Nile is a place where they would go. It is a place where they said it was a mystical place. It was a place, once again, you have to understand, they worshiped their deities at the Nile. They did things at the Nile River. And so when these things came out of the Nile, this is what troubled him, because that was their source of what they considered their source of plenty, or that was what they worshiped. And so you have to understand this was important for Joseph also to make them understand. I know who you serve, but you must understand who I serve.
Mhm.
And so this is why it's important too. Now, verse 18, he says, suddenly 7 cows came up out of the river, fine looking and fat, and they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other cows came up after them, poor and very ugly and gaunt. Such ugliness as I have never seen in all the land of Mitzrayim. So this was something that had never happened before. This was something new. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It was something new. And so it is important we understand when you see something that is gaunt and you see something that is thin and ugly, that's a problem. You know, when you see animals that are about starved to death,
Mhm.
and you see people, you know, that are about starved to death, and you see where they're nothing but skin and bones, you know, because their body fluids have begun to turn in. And most of the time when you see people with bloated bellies, it's because their the acids in their stomach have begun to basically eat up. And so it bloats them, but everything else is being drawn from. And so you can imagine what those look like, ugly and skinny and hideous. And I'm sure that would cause you to wake up, especially when you see them devour something, the fat, fine cow, and it don't even look like they even tasted them. That's a problem. You know how we say when you're driving and you have putting gas in the car, and you say, man, it's like that hand didn't even move. I put that gas in there and it's like it didn't move. You're thinking, why? Because the times. Are you following me? So it's important that we understand that. Excuse me. Let's start at verse 20, please. And let's read 9 verses. Yes, you can read. You want to read? You can read. If you don't want to read, we can go on.
And the lean and the ill-favored kind did eat fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them. But they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. So I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin, and blasted, with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. The Most High have showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kind are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kind that came up after them and are 7 years. And 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What the Most High is about to do has showeth unto Pharaoh. behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And it is so.
And so, all right, now we're looking and saying, look, he's using, this is agricultural. We're seeing kind, and we're seeing the seven stalks. I mean, the stalks with the 7 ears, and so we are able to see these things. Now, once again, it was one dream, but it was showing the severity of these of what was getting ready to take place. Whenever you start seeing thin, if you've ever seen corn that is sickly and weak and just dried out, you understand. No, because you know you can buy dried corn and it still be nice, and the ear is nice and plump, and it's dry. You know, they call what's called the Mexican corn that you can buy, and the ears are nice. And then there's that corn, if you've ever seen it, you're like, what the world is this? That's the corn that if you've ever seen where they feed pigs, that's the corn they feed pigs. That's what they do. They feed them the ears of the ones that don't really come all the way through. And they be all thin and horrible looking. You start thinking, won't nothing else eat that butter pig? Won't nothing eat that butter pig? Because we surely wouldn't eat it because it don't look right. And so we can see these things. And so when you look at that, you're able to really see the magnitude, and you can really see the importance of him understanding so that he could do what? Prepare. If we don't understand the thing, then it's hard for us to prepare. And if we can't prepare, then it makes it hard for us to help anybody else. And this is important for us to understand visions. As I said before, understand dreams. Not only that, understand the system that Abba Yahu will put in place to help us so that when hard times come, we are able to have. We're able to endure during those hard times. You have to understand, 7 years is a long time to be in a famine.
Yes.
7 years is a long time. And when you have 7 years of plenty, if you don't have someone to help you, it's just like a person gets paid at the end of the week. If you don't really know how to budget your money, you'll be living from paycheck to paycheck. And if you get paid every 14 days, then that means if you don't know how to budget, that means when on that day you get paid, the next 14 days that come about, you broke and you are in trouble. So you in a famine. Why are you in a famine? Because you don't have enough to meet your needs. Are you following me?
Yeah.
And so this is important for us to understand. And so there had to be a system put in place. And understand, when a system is put in place, it is important that we be willing to follow that system so that system can work for us and not against us.
Right.
This is very important for us to understand. And so once again, we are seeing this unfold before us. Now understand, Mitzrayim had not suffered like this before. So this was something that was new to them. And this is why it was troubling to him. Now you got to understand also, you have to have a system in place so that, in other words, you have to do like Yaakov did. Remember we was reading, and Yaakov knew that Esau was coming to meet him. So the amount he took out, the 220 goats, the 220 lambs, the 50 camel. The reason why he took that amount out was because that is the amount that anybody coming to pillage them or coming to raid them is the amount that they would take. So if I give you the amount that you would come and take from me anyway, then why would you come and take it if I'm going to give it to you?
Mhm.
So you understand. So it's important that we understand a system had to be in place. So when the times hit, those on the outskirts would not come in trying to take. Now that ain't saying that some people probably did not come to try to take, but they had a system in place that everybody could benefit from if all they had to do was follow the instructions.
Yeah.
That's all they had to do. So everybody would be able to benefit from it. Those that were in Mitzrayim and those that were in the surrounding areas of Mitzrayim. And it is so.
And it is so.
Excuse me. All right, let's finish reading. Let's start at verse 30 and let's read 9 verses, please. Mhm.
But 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Mitzrayim will be forgotten,
and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered, because of the famine that follows it will be so severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in two forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by Yahuwah, and Yahuwah will do it soon. And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man, and put him in charge of the land of Mizraim. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Mizraim during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these great years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh, to be kept in the cities for food. This food shall be held in the reserve for the country, to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Mizraim, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Ruach of Yahuwah?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since Yahuwah has made all this known to you, there is no one discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace. All of my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you." And it is so.
And it is so.
Yes.
Excuse me. Wisdom is the principal thing, and in all thy getting, get an understanding. It is important that we understand Pharaoh understood if he gave you the interpretation, then surely he's going to give you the plan, the master plan. So it would not be wise for me to get somebody else to try to execute a plan, and they couldn't even interpret the dream.
Right.
They couldn't interpret it, so it would not be wise for them to do it. And so it's important that we understand. He said, in regards to the throne, in other words, he said, now when it comes time to the throne, respect that, but you have reign over the people. You have to understand that Joseph became second in command of Mitzrayim. He was right under Pharaoh. He was right under him. He could do whatever. He basically could act in the state of Pharaoh when it came to certain things. And so one thing you have to understand, this is not something you just get because you are a smart, wise person. You have to understand, you have to go through some things, and Abba Yahuwah has to prove your heart in order for us or to get in these positions. And everybody is not going to get in these positions.
Yes.
Some things are exceptions and not rules. And so these are things that we must understand. Joseph was chosen to do this when he was 17 years of age. So it wasn't something that he went to school for. It wasn't something that he fasted and prayed for. It was something that Abba Yahuwah had chose him to do, even before he became a man in Mitzrayim of well influence. So it's important that we understand this was his responsibility. This was his task. And everybody's task is not going to be the same. It's not. And so it is important for us to understand that when we are dealing with situations, that when we are in situations of this magnitude, we need to find the one that is in charge and find out what the plans are.
Yes.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And not go trying to create something and then cause a catastrophe. Because if the Abba has not given you a plan for it and he has not given you insight to it, then what are you doing? Are you hearing me?
Yes.
You'll be in the way. You will be in the way. And if you get in the way, guess what? You're going to either get trampled over, or you're going to fall over somebody, or somebody going to fall over you. So it's important that we understand these principles. And this is how we can apply it to our everyday lives right here and right now. Once again, we must understand, learn to submit and learn to follow instructions. And this is what was important. And once again, you have to understand, Joseph said, this is a man that you need to do. He gave him the instructions. He didn't come and say, well, hey, he didn't do all that. He said, now you find the man. And then he started questioning. He said, what man? Because they know they weren't filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. They knew they didn't have the set-apart spirit. They didn't even believe in the set-apart spirit. So he's like, no, he's revealed this to you. So you're the one that you have to execute this. And the people will follow you because you have the plan. And it's important that we understand that. Understand a vision cannot truly, fully be successful unless the people are willing to follow it and trust in it.
Yes.
Are y'all following?
Yes.
It's very important we understand that. And that's one of the key things, trust.
Mhm.
He had to trust that he wouldn't get out of hand. You have to understand he had to trust to know that he wasn't going to get up there and do something silly. He had to know that. So once again, it's important that we show that same integrity. The more when we are faithful over little, then Abba Yahuwah truly can make us ruler over much. If we don't be faithful over small things, He cannot make us rulers over much. And that is important. Many times people go to school, and I'm not knocking school as long as it's teaching you the right things and it is in line with our lifestyle, our culture, and it is going to not just benefit you, but benefit us as a people. But people many times go to school, spend out millions of dollars or thousands of dollars trying to do things when in all earnestness is that when Abba Yahuwah anoints us, He appoints you to do it. He's not going to anoint you and then not appoint you. Not only does He anoint us and appoint us, but He also sets it up so things can work in the manner that they're supposed to. And this is why it is important that we continue to walk the life. We continue to walk. We continue to walk that straight and narrow path, regardless of what other people say. Well, that's just being religious. Well, whatever you may say. But I know His instructions that what He's given unto us through His writings is that we are to do this daily. Not every now and then. It is a daily command upon our lives. So it is important that we follow that. And so he was able to trust them. And so we must also be found trustworthy. And it is so.
It is so.
All right, let us read, starting at verse 41. Excuse me.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. And he made to him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, Bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath Paneah, and he gave to him Isha Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Mitzrayim. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh king of Mitzrayim. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. And in the 7 years the earth brought forth by handful. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which were in the land of Mitzrayim, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, laid up in the same place. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the year of famine, came which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And it is so.
And it is so. All right, we're going to look at 2 things. Who Joseph married and the fields. Joseph would not marry, and this is where Christianity comes in, and basically Christianity just says the bloodline was all messed up. If you let Christianity tell it, Yahushua was part of this, that, and the other, and the bloodline was all messed up and jacked up. And the same with here, but this is what is the theologian said. Joseph would not marry the daughter of a heathen priest. This was the daughter of Dinah, according to Perky Rabbi Eleazar. It says, do you want to believe that Joseph got everything else right, but just forgot about not marrying a heathen daughter of a pagan priest? This is the problem when Christians are not taught fine details like this, which are strict Torah rules. Without this, many Christians err and end up marrying into pagan heathen cultures by relating that if Joseph did so, can we? Technically, we are not forbidden into marrying into other cultures except the 7 mentioned in the Torah. One can marry into the household of Ishmael or some other culture as long as we walk with wisdom as to whom we marry. Now, I read that because I want you to understand something. you can't say one thing in one breath at the first part of the sentence, and then at the end of the sentence say, well, at the end of the paragraph, well, you can't do that as long as you marry them with wisdom. You can't do that, because if Joseph didn't marry a pagan priest's daughter, then how in the world does it change if you marry somebody outside the culture? It's still the same thing. It's still wrong. Are you following me? Yes. And the reason we have to adhere to these strict rules, because people must understand that the land that we're going to receive is given by lots, and it is according to your tribe. And so Yahuwah is going to be the one that goes in, and he's going to be the one that weeds out, and he does all these things. But the thing of it is because we understand we are not to intermarry and intermingle, that we are not to marry outside of our culture, outside of our lifestyle. And this is where people err. This is not a religion. This is our lifestyle.
Yes.
So if you marry anybody outside of the belief, you've just erred. Mm-hmm. Are you following me? Yes. And many times you have people that go and marry this person. People go marry that person, this person, that person. And they say, oh, it's okay. Why is it okay? Because they are walking in truth. That may be so. And they can walk in truth till the cows come home. But just because they walk in truth does not give us or give you the right to marry them. Mm-hmm. Because the moment you marry them, you make them a part of the inheritance. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
You make them a part of the inheritance, because you have to understand, whoever you marry gets a part of your inheritance. Right. Remember the daughters of Zelophehad? When they went, it was told them, you can marry, but don't marry outside of your tribe. If you marry outside of your tribe, that means your portion goes to the tribe of who you marry. So they had to marry cousins, which they were doing at that time. Mm-hmm. And so they had to marry cousins. And so they married cousins within their tribe. And that kept them and helped them to maintain that which belonged in their Abba's house, mm-hmm. and that which was theirs. So it's important we understand it didn't change just because we're in a new dispensation. It remains the same. Mm-hmm. If you marry outside of that, then that what you have, you're going to forfeit it. Or if you don't forfeit it, you are not going to be able to have it, period. Yeah. And so it's important we understand that. Once again, very important that we don't marry outside of our culture. Right. Don't believe that lie when people tell you it's okay to do so. It is not okay to do so. And I know people, don't like to hear me say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. And neither is polygamy. Neither is polygamy. I know, people want to believe that, a man can have 50 wives if he wants to, and, he can do whatever he want to do, and it's okay. You just marry whoever you want, and it's going to be all right. You start thinking, no, it is not going to be all right, because let's go to creation. When Abba Yahuwah created created Hawa, and he created, first of all, Hadam, then he created Hawa. He didn't create him 4 and 5 other women.
That's right.
He did not. When he created them male and female, created he them. Yes. That meant that he created enough for everybody to have somebody in their lives. But then when they get to looking in the life of Canaan, and they start looking at when his son, I believe it was grandson, had 2 wives. When he had 2 wives, now all of a sudden people want to make this a rule. This is not a rule. Are you following me? Yes. It is an exception. And even then, they still had issues. Mm-hmm. So polygamy is not right. And I know people get angry when they hear me say it. And, all this, that, and the other. Excuse me. I've had to have, let sisters know, because that's wrong. We got to be able to share. I don't share my shoes. I don't share my clothes. And I'm surely not going to share my husband. That is a no-no. Now, you can run with that however you want to. Are you following me? I don't share my spoon. You know how people eat cereal and milk? You don't eat behind somebody eating cereal and milk. That's a no-no. That's a no-no. So that's a no-no. Are you understanding me? You don't share these things. And so these are some of the things that, because it was an exception, now people want to make it a rule. It is not a rule. That's right. It is not a rule. And until we really understand our culture, and not a culture that was contaminated, that was not messed up and messed with, we will continually find ourselves vacillating in and out. And people take the mentality, well, me personally, whatever a person wants to do. We can't take that stand either. We can't take that stand. Because either you're going to be for it or you are against it. There is no middle ground.
Right.
And so we have to understand, no, there is no middle ground. And so it is important that we understand what is taking place here. Joseph put these things in place because Abba Yahuwah anointed him to do these things so that he would be able to carry the children of Yasharal first. Then everybody else came into the picture. But this was set up so that they would be able to have and that they would not suffer. And now you have to understand, he set up food storage, not bins, but he did food storages, food, call them the, I don't want to call them bins, but they're called, like a store, yeah, not like a reseller, food storage, yeah. Yosef made silos. Yosef made huge silos in Mitzrayim and stored all the food in them. Now you have to remember the reason why these things have to be stored right, because it would have been a hurtful thing to store all this food and rats get in it, other kind of bugs and pestilence get in it. Now it's contaminated. So he had to have something, watch this, large enough so that when the time came and he had people from other places coming around wanting to get, they would not have run out, they wouldn't run out of food. So you have to understand, he had a plan in place that not only made sure Mitzrayim was taken care of, but everybody on the outside of Mitzrayim that would come and need help. So it's important that we understand it. And the reason why, once again, I'm emphasizing this, excuse me, especially at the time we're in, is because we know the things that are going on in society now. You know, we said, and I will continue to say it, no, we are not a part of this world, but we do live here. We do live in America. So believe it or not, there are certain things that are going to affect us because we live here. When something I've learned is that when things become scarce and people become desperate, you create monsters. You create people that say, I would never steal. People will steal. You will create a society or a group of people that say, you know what, it's either me or them. And you know what, it ain't gonna be me. Mine, we gonna eat. If I gotta crack somebody over the head, we gonna do it. Now mind you, they have the same opportunity to prepare just like you do, just like I do, but they choose not to. And so you have to understand, when Joseph did this, he did it so that everybody that came would be able to walk away with something. You have to understand, this boy was a mathematician. He was really able to project the future and able, by that dream, are you following me? Yeah. Able to interpret and able to get these things done, because we don't read in the writings that they ever had to turn anybody away. Now, I'm sure they probably had to get some folk because they probably wanted to act all, all ratchet, but never had to turn anybody away because there was a lack of food. But if people were coming in trying to do something else, I believe so. But once again, somebody would say, well, how do we use this? Excuse me. Or how do we, in our day and time, relate to this? As I said before, you find a person that has the plan. You support that plan. We have a lot of, I won't say a lot, but we have a nice amount of farmers out here that are melanated, that are Hebrew, not just melanated because we just don't want to support just melanated people. We want to support our people, really, because you don't know if you supporting Hamites or what. Canaanites, Philistines, Philistines, or whatever. But the bottom line is we want to support our own. And the thing of it is when you find somebody with a plan, somebody that has a vision to help and to bring about change, especially when we're talking about economical change, a social change, these are the ones that you want to support. Why am I saying this? Because you have a lot of people that have invested in farmland. You have a lot of people that have these. We were looking on, I believe it was Facebook, and where people they had some like 145 potatoes cut up, ready to plant. Now you have to understand how many potatoes that's going to yield. And we are a potato family. Yes. French fries, mashed potatoes, baked potatoes, stewed potatoes, steamed potatoes. We are potato people. But the reason I'm saying this is that when you find a people that have a plan and you're able to go and you're able to reap the benefits of that plan, then support them. Support them. Geechee farmers. Yes, I'm calling names. Why do I say this? Because when you start looking at Geechee farmers, some what was the other one? Hebrew farmers. These people that have farms. Now we're in the process of getting our stuff up, but we have no, nothing compared to what they're growing. What they can actually, accommodate. They can meet the needs of those that are hundreds of families that go there because they have it already in place. So you can look at him as being like a Yosef. He has a plan, but when you go, you got to make sure you're ready. They didn't go to Mitzrayim with nothing.
Right.
Because the famine was not a shortage of money, it was a shortage of food. Because if you can't buy food, then that means more money in your pocket. And so it wasn't a shortage of money, it was a shortage of what? Food, substance.
Right.
If you don't eat, your animals don't eat. If your animals don't eat, then you're really in trouble because they can't farm land. Right. And then you can't, whichever ones were domesticated and to be eaten, they can't eat them. So it's important that we understand, support the ones with the plan, support the ones that have mastered these things and have things in place where you can go and buy beans, you can go buy potatoes, you can buy onions, you can go buy carrots, you can go buy these things, and guess what? Who's prepared it and you know how they prepared it. Whereas, sometimes, excuse me, I don't always like to do it, but it's sometimes out of convenience. Right. We have to hit Walmart, and I hate Walmart, seriously. And I'm not giving them no advertisement, but you got to eat. If I can't get there, I still have to do something. And basically, they are the place that we go to. But the thing of it is if you know you can get to these places, support them. It is my goal to support them, and it's my desire to get to them and buy, because we were able to grow our own potatoes last year, onions. We were able to get some greens out of there, and I'm telling you, those were the sweetest tasting potatoes out of the ground that we have. And I mean, it was just an experience out of this world. We had beans and so forth. So we were able to do these things. And so the reason why I am encouraging you to do these things is because when we support them, we are supporting a vision. Right. Now, watch this. When the stores close down and when all this stuff collapses, guess what? Our people will still be thriving and our people will still be going forward. So now that we can support them, let's make an effort to support them and find out what you need to do to purchase their stuff. Make sure you find out where they are, and let's support them. Let's support them, and let's make sure we appreciate them and show them that we believe in their vision. Sorry. That we believe in their vision. I don't like Walmart either. Walmart is but when you have to go to the store, you have to go. The other stores be high as crap, $5 and $6 for this, and then you go to Walmart, it's $2. You be like, man, I hate going here. But you have to do what you have to do until you're able to do better. But once again, I want to encourage us. Find those places where we know they have the food and they have it, and it is us, it is our people that's putting it out there, and let's support them 100%. Right. And by doing so, guess what? We keep that money in our community. We keep it in there, and then they're able to help somebody else. And so once us make a point to support them and purchase their vegetation, purchase the animals that they have for sale. And by doing so, you're supporting their vision, because I do look at them as a type of Yosef. And it is so. And it is so, especially when you go and you hear recalls on food. How do you recall vegetables? Why? Because of contaminated water. If you eat vegetation that is contaminated, you go in and you wash it off. No, when you wash that stuff off, you need soap and water. You go in and talk about eating greens that has been exposed to E. coli, and you think a little salt and water, how we used to clean them. We still clean them like that, but now people say, you better put a little dish detergent or something, and you're going to have bubbles in your greens. because the roughness of the powder helped take it off. I've done it, but that's just not a great idea. Why it's not a great idea? Because it tends to take the taste away from the greens. But we used to take the salt and you fill that sink with some cold water and pour all that salt in there, and you take it in cold water and you get them in there and you pull them up and then you put them back down in there. By the time you finish rinsing those greens are spotless. And you look in the bottom, you're like, dang, if I didn't wash them, we'd be eating a pot of dirt. We'd be eating a pot of grit. So you have to wash them out. But what I am saying is, when the greens or any vegetation is contaminated, even just washing it off, you will still be eating contaminated vegetation. So you don't want to do that. And so this is why it's important that we know where our vegetation is coming from, and we're able to make sure we're eating healthy, and at the same time, we're supporting a great cause. Really supporting a great cause. So I want to say that once again, let's support them and let's get out there and show them some ahab, because they do. I've seen where, and we're going back into the readings where during the time where the government was only issuing out food stamps for the month of January, I believe it was. And so they were giving people 2 for the price of 1. I think that is phenomenal. You ain't gonna go to Walmart and anywhere else and get 2 for the price of 1. You know what their little disclaimer was? Spend your money wisely, because this may be all you get until March. But they weren't giving anybody discounts. And let me show you how selfish they are. They have chain stores. They have chain stores. What is that? You know, there's a Walmart and a neighborhood Walmart in every community.
Right.
So you mean to tell me that during this time you couldn't give people 2 for the price of 1? They weren't going to, because they're about that money. They ain't trying to help nobody but themselves. And so it's important that we understand. And he was doing that. And he was helping people, and he was saying, look, you guys come, I'll give you 2 for the price of 1. Eggs, whatever it is you want, you get 2 for the price of 1. You can't beat that. You can't beat that, because that helps you to carry over into the next month. Are you following? Yes. So we have to understand these things. And so, excuse me, I look at them as a type of Joseph. All right, let's finish reading. Let's finish out chapter 41, please.
So verse 51.
Mm-hmm.
Say verses
9.
And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for power has made me forget all my toil and all my Abba's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for power has caused me to bear fruit in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenty which were in the land of Mizraim came to an end, and the 7 years of scarcity of food began to come, as Joseph had said, and the scarcity of food was in all lands. But in all the land of Mizraim there was bread. But when all the land of Mizraim hungered, and the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, Pharaoh said to all the Mizrahites, go to Joseph, do whatever he says to you. And the scarcity of food was over all the face of the Eretz. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Mizrahites.
Mm-hmm.
And the scarcity of food was severe in the land of Mizraim. And all the Eretz came to Joseph in Mizraim to buy grain, because the scarcity of food was severe in all the Eretz.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 42, verse 1. And when Yaakov saw that there was grain in Mizraim, Yaakov said to his sons, why do you look at each other? And he said, see, I have heard that there is grain in Mizraim. Go down to that place and buy for us there, and let us live, not die. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, he's, you know he was going to stand around for him. Go. But look, once again, they went to do what? Buy. So you have to understand, when this was set up, it was made known to the people of the land. We are doing this so when it comes time and this famine hits, remember, you are going to have the opportunity to purchase what you need. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
This is also community in action. Community is not just a handout, it is a place of operations. This is a place of operations. Why? Because they had a plan in place and they didn't wait for it to be so severe that now they scraping trying to get it done. He was already prepared for it. So what did Pharaoh do? He said, now go to Joseph. Go to him, and he's going to tell you what to do. And Joseph instructed them on what they needed to do. Now you have to understand, word started getting out. That's how this thing started spreading, because you have to understand the famine was all around. And so when people started, basically, I'm assuming, and pretty sure people started going and saying, man, shoot, we thought we was gonna die out here. Well, where'd y'all go? We went to Mizraim. Why, man? They got a system up there.
Right.
You need grain, you need whatever. They got it. Really? You serious? Yeah, you just got to take your money. Once again, there was no shortage of money. It was a shortage of food. So this is one of the things that was important. And this is why Joseph was set there for this reason here. When his Abba said to them, he said in verse 1, when Yaakov saw that there was grain in Mitzrayim, Yaakov said to his sons, why do you look at one another? In other words, y'all know where the stuff is. Go get it. Stop sitting around, like you don't know what to do. You know we can't do anything right now. It's out of our hands to do anything. So get down there and do what you need to do. And he said, indeed, I have heard that there is grain in Mitzrayim. Go down to that place and buy for us there, that we may live and not die. So now, once again, you have to understand, he's ready to live. He don't want to die, especially a famine. He don't want to die, he want to live. And so this is important. If we want to not just live, not just survive, but really be able to live, then we're going to have to get with the plan, and we're going to have to really start supporting one another. I say this, and once again, it is my desire to get there. We are about, I think, maybe 3 hours away from them. And so it is my desire, and I'm not going to tell you to do something that I'm not willing to do and that I'm not going to do, because it is in my heart to go down there. But I don't want to go down there and just spend a couple of dollars, which whatever you spend, I'm sure that it will be appreciated. But the bottom line is they knew where it was. We're looking for seeds that will grow. We're looking for produce that we know when we put it in the ground is going to come back up, and we don't have to worry about saying, oh man, we planted 74 ears of corn and not one of them grew. We planted tomatoes. We planted this and not one thing grew and nothing came back up. Why? Because the seeds were messed up. Providing a service to us that we're going to get great stuff. We're going to get great things. I believe they have coffee. I believe they have coffee beans. They have some of everything that you could ever think about buying. And so I want to encourage you once again, that's Geechee farmers, Hebrew farmers, and anybody else that I find out, I will be sure to drop you a line concerning it, because we definitely want to support them, especially now. Once again, we really want to support them. Right. So with that being said, we are going to come to close, and we will be ready on tomorrow, Yahuwah willing, to pick back up at 11:45 to finish hearing the conclusion to the matter of Joseph and his plan that Abba Yahuwah gave to him for Yasharal, for the children of Yasharal, that they may live and not die during a time of famine. We want to live and not die. Right. And because we want to live and not die, it is important that we find the source that will help us to do so. I want you to remember, keep your head up, keep your shoulders square, and keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because you can't go wrong when you allow Abba Yahuwah to do all that he said he would do for you through Yahush, our Mashiach. I am Aliyah Yasharal, and I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom Hebraic Belief Ministries, located in South Carolina. I want you to remember, here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom Hebraic Belief Ministries, this is the place where the Torah does the body excellent. Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah Baruch Atah and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. Also, I want you to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside. And it is so.
And it is so.